Love is famously the single most sought-after human emotion. Yet, routinely, a marriage will begin with a perfect honeymoon phase, only to completely shatter just a few years or even months after the wedding. A marriage counselor was recently on a flight between Buffalo and Dallas when the man in the next seat, an intelligent, highly successful executive, turned to him with a question. He had been married 3 times. Every single time, the relationship was incredible before the vows were exchanged. But shortly after, the affection entirely evaporated. In his 3rd marriage, he was determined to get it right. He constantly praised his wife. He told her she was beautiful and that he was proud to be her husband. Despite all this verbal affection, she grew deeply resentful, complained constantly, and accused him of not caring. He was left asking a question thousands of people ask themselves. Is this post-wedding emptiness an inevitable tragedy of human nature? Or is there an invisible variable causing the breakdown? The breakdown in these marriages occurs because the 2 people involved are using entirely different methods of expressing affection, causing the message of love to be missed entirely. Think of it like spoken linguistics. If you only speak English and you try to express a thought to someone who only understands Chinese, the transmission fails. It doesn't matter how loudly or how sincerely you speak, you will not communicate. Human psychology operates on the exact same mechanical rules. Based on our childhood development, every person develops a unique native tongue for processing emotional affection. The statistical reality is that a husband and a wife almost never share the same primary emotional language. The businessman on the plane was broadcasting perfectly. His compliments and praise were spoken fluently in the language of affirming words, but his wife was tuned to a completely different frequency. To her, his words registered as meaningless noise. Here's what that looks like. When you transmit affection in a format the receiver isn't built to decode, the signal bounces right off. To fix this, the transmitting node consciously reconfigures its output to match the receiving port, allowing the signal to finally lock in. Sincere feelings only bridge the gap between 2 people when they are translated into the specific emotional language the other person is equipped to receive. To see the psychological toll of a prolonged transmission failure, we can look at a diagnostic concept developed by child psychiatrist Dr. Ross Campbell. Reading this passage from his research, we see Dr. Campbell identifying a hidden psychological engine driving our behavior. He states, "Inside every child is an emotional tank waiting to be filled with love. When a person is constantly spoken to in a foreign emotional language, they don't process the affection. Over time, that internal tank simply drains to zero. Consider the case of Ashley, a 13-year-old girl who ended up in the counselor's office being treated for a sexually transmitted disease. Her mother and stepfather were crushed. They had provided for all her physical needs and genuinely cared for her, but their failure to speak her primary language left her feeling entirely unloved, prompting her to desperately seek affection from an older boy at school. The misbehavior of children and the deep resentment of adults are rarely signs of malice. They are the desperate, misguided symptoms of a completely empty emotional tank. Despite the massive complexity of human relationships, emotional translation generally boils down to 5 distinct dialects. We diagnose these tongues using an assessment profile where individuals select between scenarios, like receiving a gift or getting help. Checking the key, those answers map directly to 5 languages: words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Maintaining a long-term marriage requires treating love as a deliberate daily choice, an active commitment executed even when the initial feelings of romance have cooled. It takes ongoing effort to override your own native tongue. You have to deliberately execute actions that might feel unnatural to you, just so they register clearly in your partner's language. The emptiness that follows the wedding vows is not inevitable. By identifying our partner's language and actively translating our actions, we keep the emotional tank full, securing a permanent, heartfelt commitment.